It's mind-boggling, isn't it? The thought that the decisions we make today could have an influence on what we experience tomorrow or next week, sometimes for the rest of our lives. Who'd have thought? We all make choices every day. But hey, most of them are inconsequential, right? Is it? Is that right? Try thinking of the choices that you make every day. And think of them as water dripping on your character. Are your choices building you up into a strong, robust stalagmite? Or is that constant dripping water wearing a hole in your soul? That's kind of funny, don't you think? It rhymes. I have told you the story of my parents, and yes, I do have a script. I will try to stick to it both for the sake of time and for the sake of clarity. My parents, they chose to let me be born, and I mean that literally. The conversation was between whether I would be born or I would be an abortion. My father was in his second marriage, and he very definitely wanted 2 children. That's it, no more. And of course, my parents had already had 2 children. When my mother found out she was pregnant with me, my father insisted on an abortion. So they had a conversation, and they ended up compromising. He would allow me to be born on the condition that he could vent on me his frustration with his mother. Yeah, if that sounds a little wonky to you, that's because it is. His mother was abusive toward him, but he was never able to get any satisfaction or closure with her. Imagine that. And my parents were direct in making sure I knew they did not love me. As a young boy, they left me with friends of the family while they took my brother and sister on the family vacation. And when I found out what they were doing, did they change anything? No. They started shipping me off to be with my grandmother and my Aunt Jerry, because family would take me, whereas friends of the family said, "We no longer want to be part of this." At any rate, the list of things that they did is clearly extensive. It encompasses, my initial part of life while living at home. And to be honest, at this point in my life, what they did is now irrelevant. And that's an important thing for all of us to remember. There's no rule, there's no law, there's nothing saying that what happened to you yesterday, let alone 20 years or 40 years or however long ago, needs to determine what your life is today and tomorrow. What is relevant, and especially in this context, what is relevant is the decision that I made while experiencing all of this. As much as my parents made it clear that they didn't love me, and of course, you're supposed to love your kids, right? That's the way it's supposed to work. They also made it clear that everything that ever went wrong was my fault. It was just, I wouldn't do what I was told. I wasn't, living up to expectation. It was my fault. It was never their responsibility. So the decision I made was, there must be something wrong with me. Now remember, this is a choice being made as a kid. Your parents don't love you. They make that clear. They make clear that anything that ever goes wrong is your fault. That it's never that they could have done something differently. No. It's your fault. So it's kind of natural that you would conclude there's something wrong with me. I am so bad in some way, shape, or form that even my parents don't love me. And they're the people who are supposed to love me unconditionally. And as you might imagine, that choice influenced everything I did in my life. Now, that's just me, and that's my life. And I'm sure you can understand how me moving through my life, I've certainly had an effect on, some people around me. But sometimes people make choices that have a much wider societal effect. And one person of whom I'm thinking, and there are several throughout history, but the one I'm contemplating right now is Dr. John Money. And he had a theory that we have a physical, biological sex, and that we choose a psychological gender. Wonder how familiar that sounds to folks. And while his theory was still nascent, he had sort of the good fortune to encounter the perfect test subjects. Good for him, not so good for anybody else. What happened was twin boys were brought to him because one of the boys had had his penis irreparably damaged by another doctor who tried to fix a minor dysfunction, using cauterization, which, was never called for, and the doctor ended up burning the boy's penis so badly that there was no repairing it. Wow. Dr. Money said, that's just fine. No need to worry at all. They'll just give the boy hormone treatments and cosmetic surgery to make him appear female. It's fine. All the parents had to do was raise the boy as a female, and all would be well. The parents took their sons back to Dr. Money sort of every 6 months for follow-up and for therapy and, to talk, check progress. Well, with all of the choices that Dr. Money made, it ended up having a very negative effect on the boys. The boy that was turned into a female never ever identified as a female, and so was conflicted throughout his life. And the end result of this decision made by Dr. Money is that both boys died by their own hands. The trouble is that Dr. Money managed to hide his failure for almost 25 years. And while he was hiding his failure, he was pushing his theory, and he was gaining fame for himself with this new idea. And look around. You can see the consequences of his choice today throughout American and Canadian society. Then there's the idea that there is a student loan crisis. I agree there are people who took out student loans who are in crisis. But does that mean any of the rest of us need to deal with it as a crisis? Students chose to go deeply into debt financing their education, and now they are unable to repay those loans. Or they're having a very difficult time repaying those loans. There are a lot of bad choices in there. And this is a tremendous example of how it is that choices you make today will affect your life tomorrow. In the case of student loans, banks made bad choices. They gave money to people with no ability to repay those loans. And they made zero effort to educate the students about what are they going to do to repay this money. The parents failed their children. The parents just let their kids take out the debt. Wow. How about guiding them into a path that helps them complete university with at least less debt? How about teaching your kids that, okay, if you're going to go to university and we don't have the money to pay for it, instead of just thinking, oh, it's free money, they're just going to give us free money. No. No one loans money for free. So instead of thinking that, how about teaching your kids, okay, you're taking out these loans. That means when summer holidays come, you need to work your buns off to earn money so that you need as little loan as possible. And here's a thought. How about we make sure that the degree you are studying, that you are working to complete, is one that is highly likely to lead to employment, as opposed to studying sociology or political science or something else that really has no life application. And then the students failed themselves. Okay, you are 18, 19 years of age. You know you may never have taken out debt before, but you know that you have taken on this debt, that you have a responsibility to repay it. It isn't free money. That's made clear to you as you are signing the forms to get these loans. And if you happen to be one of the people who, like me, your birthday comes at the end of the year, so you started university or college at age 17, you really know it isn't free because your parents will have had to co-sign the loans because you're not 18. Whether we ever choose to admit it or accept it, the fact is the choices we make today have consequences tomorrow, the day after, and the rest of our lives. Now, that said, it is equally true that wherever you are today, the choices you have made are your past. And your past is just a story. It might be a very sad story. It might be a very upsetting story. But it is just a story. You can change the rest of your story, the rest of your life, by starting to make different choices today. Let's talk about the most important choice all of us make every single day, and it is around our self-talk. Oh, what do you mean? I don't talk to myself. I never talk to myself. Okay, you're lying, but okay. We all talk to ourselves. When we do something, we either congratulate ourselves or we remonstrate with ourselves. I grew up listening to my father. If he made a mistake in the woodworking shop, I could hear him upstairs in the house screaming at himself that he was stupid. How could you make such a mistake? You're so stupid, stupid. It was just, wow, horrendous to hear. This was his self-talk. It's no surprise that he spent his life being angry and upset, because he was always angry and upset with himself. And I've talked before, when you get up in the morning and look out the window, do you see a bright new day? Do you see opportunities? Or do you see a grind? Okay, the choices you are making, the things you are telling yourself, every moment of every day, determine the kind of life you live. If someone cuts you off in traffic, do you get all road rage? Wah! How could they do that to me? Wah! Or do you stop and think, you know what? That was not nice, but there's no way for me to know what that person is experiencing. And that particular thing I know very well from personal experience. I had a specific situation occur. I was very unhappy. I should never have gotten into my van and driven, but I did. And what I did, I decided to go to a Canadian Tire store. I pull in, I'm driving in the parking lot, there's a stop sign for me, and I went straight through it. Fortunately, the couple that were driving another vehicle saw what was happening, and they stopped their vehicle and allowed me to go through. So they saved us from being in an accident. And what I did, I realized what had happened. I went, I got my van parked, I got out, and I walked over to the husband and wife that were getting out of their vehicle. And the husband clearly thought I was coming to "Rah!" kind of thing. And when I walked up, they both, you could see them relax and breathe a sigh of relief when I said, you know what, thank you. I am really upset. My mind is elsewhere. I should not even be driving. So I very much appreciate that you saw what was happening and stopped. Thank you very much. And what I'm going to do now is just go in the store. I'm going to wander around for a while and get my head straight. Okay, the both of them, the husband and the wife, could have gotten out of their vehicle and been very angry, very upset with me. They weren't. They weren't upset with me at all. As I walked up, they were clearly, the body language said they were feeling defensive. And when I apologized to them and thanked them for saving us from an accident, they were clearly relieved. So what do? When somebody does something and you have no idea what is going on in that person's life, do you just get upset about it? Or do you stop and think, you know what, I have no idea what they are experiencing right now? And I would say it's probably also worth right now addressing the biggest objection that I hear to this all the time.
Can it really be that simple? Do you really think it's that easy?
I don't remember ever saying it was easy. But it is that simple. It really is. There's a link in the description to a PEP and POOP reference chart. PEP, personal empowerment practices. POOP, personally offensive obstructive practices. Click the link, download the reference chart, read it, and take an honest look at yourself and your life. Which column are you using to fill your life? Are you blaming others and criticizing others and complaining? Or are you caring about others and supporting them and encouraging them? It is your life, which means it is your responsibility. If you want to be happy, then you need to make good choices. It's that simple.